All right. Next up, we have our second California city, the city of Vallejo, California, which we're also lucky to have many members of the Vallejo team here. Joanna's there. Thank you all for coming. We have many of our officers from Vallejo here as well. Team Vallejo is working on tackling the tough issue of community police relations. These fellows have spent the last few months immersing themselves in the community in Vallejo. Again, I want to thank the James Irvine Foundation for supporting these two California cities. So now we're going to have Jasmine, Nikki, and Andrew come up and talk about the work that they're doing there. Is this close enough?
Okay. So this is what the city came to us with. They asked us to increase trust between the police and community. So it's a really complex issue that we have in front of us. And we've been thinking a lot about this relationship. I mean, increasing trust between police and community implies that there's distrust, right? So we've kind of been spending these past few months thinking about where that distrust comes from, how does the police feel, how does the community feel, and what are those issues that are specific to Vallejo? A lot of issues aren't specific to Vallejo right now. So what's going on in the city? And we found so far that a lot of the problems stem from a lot of economic instability in the city. In the mid-90s, the city lost Mare Island's naval shipyard, which was the main source of jobs in the city. So that was pretty devastating. And then in 2009, the city filed for bankruptcy. So staff was reduced throughout the city, and especially in the police department, which caused a lot of reasons for distrust between community and police. So just to kind of give a few instances to illustrate this. So murders have risen since the bankruptcy. As you can see, if the bankruptcy happened in 2009, you can see there's just been a dramatic increase in violent crime. And then property crime has also just been very prevalent in Vallejo. And that's been increased as a result of just the financial troubles of this town. And then also there have just been more specific incidents. So in 2011, an officer was killed in the line of duty, and then the following year, 6 individuals were killed by officers. So these are just incidents that have really made made relationships tense in this town. I'm sorry that I keep doing that. But then another thing that's really interesting is that with increased property crimes, we've also seen really amazing engagement by people living in Vallejo. So neighborhood watch groups, as you can see, were not really so active before the bankruptcy, but then they just skyrocketed. I mean, there are like hundreds of them right now, and this is a result of just the city not being able to meet the needs that the community has to make their neighborhoods safe and the places that they want to live in. So these pictures kind of indicate certain activity that we've been exposed to these past several months. In February, when we were living in Vallejo, we attended this neighborhood watch meeting. And this looks pretty active, but just to kind of give you guys an idea, these meetings happen multiple times every single week in Vallejo. So there's just a tremendous amount of activity. And it's exciting, but it also kind of indicates that there's a need that just is not being met by the resources that the city currently has. And then also, this is just, the picture on the right is just a protest that happened very recently at City Hall, just to kind of remind everybody that while people are trying to make their neighborhoods safer, people are also questioning what fairness looks like in our criminal justice system. So the conversations that we hear all the time that are going on throughout the country are also happening in Vallejo. And it makes it a very, very rich and complex landscape for us to work within. Nonetheless, we've just been amazed with the people that we've been meeting. Similar to the people who just presented on West Sac, we've been meeting really incredible people out in Vallejo. This is a picture from our Code Cross event. Does everybody here know what Code Cross is? Some people participated. So Code Cross is an event that Code for America with sponsors maybe, or is involved in that, civic engagement through technology throughout the country. And usually these are technological events, but we decided in Vallejo, let's just throw a party. Let's just make a good time for people to come out and know who we are. And so we had music, we had food, we had activities to help people think about their city. And it was just amazing who came out. It was beyond what we expected. A kid with a skateboard came out, and I was chatting with him. I said, "Oh, do these exercises." And then afterwards, I said, "Well, the pizza's over there," and the kid didn't even want any. He was just really excited to talk about what he thought the city could use. So, pretty amazing place, pretty complex issues. We're going to go on. Jasmine's going to talk a little bit about what we've learned in the field, and Andrew's going to talk more about what we've been building and our next steps.
So we lived in Vallejo for all of February. We met tons of the residents there. We heard their stories. We rode along with tons of the police officers and shadowed city staff. And we heard about some of the things that were also still ongoing there in the city. For example, just this April, there's a 7-year-old that was shot in Vallejo in his own neighborhood by a stray bullet. 2 days later, I happened to be riding along with the officer who was the first on the scene that night. And he told me how he was feeling really discouraged, and he told me about that story when he arrived on the scene there. He got there's a crowd of people in the street, and he was making his way through to see what happened and how they could help. And everyone was yelling at them really hostile things, like, "Get out of our neighborhood, we don't want you here, we don't trust you, we don't want your help." And that's really tough. And it's not the first time that we've heard something like this during our time in Vallejo. In February, one man said to me, a resident in Vallejo, "When we look into those police cars, we don't see ourselves." And that's really tough when the people that are designed in the city to help you and to keep you safe are ones that you don't feel that you can talk to or relate to at all. So we really want to do something about that. We know that we can't repair history and years of distrust and broken relationships, but we think we can make a step in the right direction. So one of our goals is to increase opportunities for positive interactions between the police department and the community. Not just in 911 situations, but also in non-emergency situations. For example, Andrew, during his ride along, he had a really cool moment where they were stopped at a stoplight, and a man pulled up next to them, kind of waved in the window and asked if they had a second. He just had a quick question, and he wanted to chat with the officer. So they pulled over to the side, and the man asked him about a theft that happened to him a while back, and there wasn't really anything the officer could do, but I think he listened to the guy. The guy vented for a while. They shared a few jokes, and it ended in a handshake, and they walked. They went both on their ways. So we wanted to find more opportunities like that, where we can increase positive interactions, so that they're associated with helping and friendliness and positive things. And so there's that interaction, in non-911 situations, but what about when somebody does call 911? How are the interactions between the police department and the community then? In March, we were calling people to see how their recent interactions went. We were trying out one of our prototypes. And I ended up talking on the phone with this guy for a while. He had just had a burglary happen to him. And he was telling me about that day, and I said, "Well, how was the police officer when he arrived there? Was he nice? Was he friendly? How did he go?" And he said, "Well, yeah, sure, he was nice. He was friendly, he was respectful, and he was apologetic, but he felt like he had already given up before he got in there." And Nikki kind of mentioned some of this when she was talking, that there's a big lack of resources in Vallejo, and there's this mindset that because of the lack of resources, we can't deal with these situations. Like, this man has already been burglarized 5 times. This wasn't his first time, and he waited 4 hours for the police to arrive at his house. When the police got there, the police was very nice, but he was kind of like, "Well, we're really busy. We don't have very many officers. Before the bankruptcy, we had 158. In 2013, they only had 77 to police the whole city. Now they're building up, but they're still feeling those effects." So we want to know, what can we do about that? We think we can increase the efficiency that they can do their jobs. Maybe we can give them better tools to understand what's going on and better strategize with the few resources that they do have, so they can fulfill that promise that when you call the police department, they're going to be there to help and they're going to be able to do something about it. And so then, what about if the police department does show up, but they're not legally able to make an arrest or a citation? there's still that expectation that they're going to be there to help you. So this quote here is from one of my ride-alongs. It was towards the end of it. It was about 1 in the morning. We arrive at this woman's house. An elderly woman answers the door, and she's telling us about a couple hours earlier how she got in an argument with her neighbor, and they were arguing about his TV was too loud or something like that. And she was like, "What can you do about this, officer?" And he was like, "Well, the TV's down now. You guys aren't arguing, so I can't really do anything for you right now. I'm sorry this happened." And she was really shaken up, and she said, "Well, what do I do if he comes back? What do I do if he wants to argue with me again? I'm really afraid." And he said, "Well, you'll have to call 911 again. I can't do anything. I'm sorry." So he was really genuine, and he was really apologetic and nice. But there was still that gap where she wanted him to do something, but he couldn't. So we're wondering, like, what can we do about that? We think we can give people more feedback on what to expect before a police gets to their house and after, like what happens when they leave. And then maybe what if that officer could have pointed her in the right direction and said, "You know, I can't legally do anything for you right now, but I can point you to this online resource. Here's how to secure your property and make it more safe." Or, "You know, it looks like your neighborhood watch captain is down the street. She said she's open to talk if you're feeling unsafe." So those are some things that we're thinking about. It's a really tough issue, and we're always very proud of Vallejo and the city of Vallejo to be working on this issue in such a really hard time. So we want to increase communications between police and community, make their tools more efficient so that they can fulfill that promise that when you call the police, they're going to be there to help. And then provide people more feedback and access to information when they do need help. And Andrew's going to tell you a little bit more about how we're going to do that.
So we've been working on a handful of prototypes, and I want to introduce 2 of them tonight. So this is Tina. She's a staff member with the police department's community services section. And their job is to investigate reports of nuisance properties around the city. And so the program's been increasingly successful since it was started about a year ago. But in order to follow one of those reports, you have to call a city voicemail system, leave a message, and then a staff member listens to each one and writes down notes as they go. And that's what's going on in this picture here. This whole process takes up to half of somebody's workday. So we designed a tool to automate that intake process. And so now callers will be able to be asked a series of structured questions that will provide the city with the details they need faster. We're also providing a way to track and manage these reports so that we can provide, so we can make patterns known. And we think this will put the city and residents in a better position to address the problem closer to its root cause. So this speaks to a couple of our goals that Jasmine talked about earlier. It increases opportunities for communication, and that folks will now still be able to call in, and they'll be given feedback as progress is made in the report. And it also speeds things up by reducing the time it takes before work can be done on the report. Secondly, this is one of the police clerks working at the front desk in the front lobby. And so people will come in, ask various questions, and conduct business with the department. One of the clerks had mentioned to us that they felt like they were Google for the police. And so we thought, what if there was a Google for the police? So we're working on a tool that will explain the services the department provides in clear and simple language. And we think that by reducing the friction to obtaining these services and providing more clarity around the processes involved, will improve residents' overall satisfaction with the police department. This also speaks to a couple of our goals that Jasmine mentioned. It provides information, and then it gives residents a place to go for help for non-emergencies. And it also provides feedback in that people will be able to ask questions and pose them to the police department to be answered later. So what's next and where are we going? Over the past few months, we have worked with a lot of different groups and heard a lot of different feedback and stories. We've been working with faith-based organizations, nonprofits, community service providers, students, artists. We've been having meetings in City Hall and with members of the police department. But now we're ready to put some of those tools into users' hands and iterate based on their feedback. We came across a quote recently from a conference, and I'll paraphrase it here, but building with your users instead of for them at the speed of inclusivity takes time. And that message really spoke to us as far as how we're approaching our work. And it also speaks to the goal of our program here, which is increasing trust between the police department and the community. That also takes time. So to that end, we're designing a specific set of tools to be as inclusive as possible so that when we deliver them and them off at the end of the fellowship year, the community will feel like it's something that they built themselves. Thank you.